So today we're going to turn these tandem dumb water heaters into a set of smart energy saving water heaters with a few supplies you can get from Home Center and a couple of things from Amazon, but they're not too hard to find, and everything is actually very affordable. This is a fairly simple project for somebody who's comfortable with electricity, knows how to disconnect the breaker box so that you can work safely, and we can turn these two water heaters into from energy wasters into energy savers. I've already installed some indicator lights on my water heaters, just so at a quick glance I can make sure that I always have power going to them. I've installed indicator lights on the heating elements of the thermostats. That just gives me a quick way to glance at my water heater and tell whether or not the heaters are actually running, whether I'm consuming power. As long as my top lights are on, that just tells me that there's power to the water heaters. As long as the element lights are not lit, that says I'm not consuming any energy. I just have power to them without actually using anything. But today we're going to install a electrical box that's going to be controlled by a smart Wi-Fi outlet. We're going to be able to control it based off of our location. So any member of the family who leaves the house, once everybody is gone from the house, the water heaters will turn off because there will be no need to heat water when nobody's home. We can also set that same receptacle up with a timer so that at 10 o'clock at night, say when everybody goes to bed, our water heaters will turn off. There's no reason to heat water when everybody's asleep. We have a typical time we get up in the morning. We can turn the water heaters on about an hour before we typically get up. That will allow the water to come back up to temperature. Using the thermostats that are already built in the water heaters, we're not going to change anything here. The water heaters will still have the ultimate control over the actual temperature of the water. So I'm not changing anything there. We're just disconnecting the power and reconnecting the power when we want it to. Okay, well that's it. So let's take a look at the materials we're going to be using today. It should be pretty straightforward. We'll take a glance at some different options that could be used, and we're going to go through the setup process of how this is going to work, and then we'll just go ahead and get started on it because it shouldn't take us too awfully long. All right, let's go. All right, so this is just a quick look at some of the parts we're going to be using. There's going to be some odds and ends, connectors, wire nuts, screws, just simple hardware stuff. All that stuff will change depending on exactly how you set yours up, but this is how I'm setting mine up today. So the heart of this whole system is actually going to be our electrical box. It's going to be metal, so it's going to be fireproof. Just a simple flathead screwdriver to open it and close it. No need to really lock it. It's already got knockouts all the way around it. What we're going to do with this is we're going to take one of these. Actually, we're going to take two of these because we have two water heaters. This is a contactor. It's essentially a relay, just a little bit larger. They come in larger sizes. This is an industrial size relay. This is something I typically use at work. This is very large, overkill for our project. One of these costs upwards of $500 or more. So we're not going to use this. This is ridiculous. Let's put this away. Okay, all we're going to need is something like this. These are fairly cheap. You can find them anywhere from sometimes less than $10, sometimes around $15 on Amazon or somewhere. They're pretty readily available. I think I ordered this, I got it the next day. We're going to use two of these. For our setup, what we're actually going to do here is what you want to make sure when you order it is that you get a coil voltage of 120 volts. That is what we're going to call the control circuit. That controls the contactors. That will wire into the sides of the contactor. I work with these all the time, so I'm pretty comfortable with the components here. If you're not comfortable with it, maybe watch a few other YouTube videos of somebody else explaining these a little bit better than me. But the power from our smart controller is actually going to go on these side pins here. Our water heater power will go through this contactor. This is just essentially a relay, switch, simple mounting feet. We're going to mount 2 of these inside of our box in the back. They'll be tucked away nice and safe. The little hands can get to it. The box will be mounted up above. The water heater's up high. Never any reason for anybody to ever have to open it for anything. So these will go inside the electrical box. We're going to intercept the wires that come out of the breaker panel, out of the wall directly to the water heaters. They will go into one of these knockouts somewhere on the side of this box. And then we will install this. This is a whip. You can get this from the home center. It already comes with everything you need. 10 gauge wire for your water heaters. Got some connectors. It's a liquid tight connection. You can cut it down to length. You can kind of warm it up a little bit to be able to get it to stay where you want it to. So we'll fix that when we're installing. So we have 2 of these because we're going to have 2 water heaters, 2 breakers, 2 contactors, 2 whips. To control our water heater, we're going to use a 120 volt circuit. Again, you can get one of these at the home center. Already comes pre-cut off, ready to go, molded plug. You can buy cord and a plug and wire everything together yourself. But I find by the time you buy the wire, buy the plug, put everything together, you could have already just bought one of these and you're done. So that's what we're going to use. Now, as far as the controlling of the water heater, this is the part that makes it smart. So what we have here is a smart light switch, right? And a smart outlet, smart receptacle. This is takes up 1 outlet, gives you 2 independently controlled receptacles. You can control these any which way you want with only taking up 1 outlet on the wall there. I chose this one because today we're going to be controlling the water heaters, turning them on and off. Later down the road, I need to get a plumber over here to help me install a recirculating pump. So we're going to use the other outlet for the recirculating pump so that we can keep our hot water lines going out to the faucets prepped up, primed, ready to go with hot water. So we really just have to turn on. That'll help save us water instead of draining 4 or 5 gallons of water down the sink while we're waiting for the water to heat up. We'll have it within a matter of seconds. That's later. Today, we're just going to use one side of this for our water heaters to turn them into smart water heaters. So you have the option, which one do you use? This is actually going to be for a different project I'm working on, but I have seen people use these switches. Basically, you could drill a hole and mount it on the front panel of this box. Nice clean looking setup. The only problem I see with using these is they require a neutral wire. 120 volts, ground, and then that would be the switch leg that will actually control the contactors and actually turn the power to those on and off. The problem with doing all this is the water heaters, they do not have neutral wires. They are 240 volts. They have 2 hot wires of separate phases that they use. There is no neutral wire over there. So we have to bring a neutral wire into this box in order to control everything, because our contactors, again, I'll put them in here. Our contactors, again, use 120 volts. So we need a hot wire on one side and a neutral wire on the other side. It does not matter which side you go to, as long as you put hot on one side and neutral on the other. Well, should this part ever fail and we have to bypass it somehow to get our water heated back up again, to get these contactors pulled back in and get the water working again, we would have to pretty much unwire whatever it is we have up in here and reconnect everything in another way in order to get water again, to get the contactors pulled in and have hot water. So for our application, this is not going to work. say I'm gone at work, the smart switch isn't working, the internet's down, whatever, and this just does not work, and my wife or daughter's here and they need some hot water. Well, they can simply walk out to the garage, and where this is plugged in here and this is controlling going to our contactors. If there's ever a problem with either the smart switch itself or the internet and nothing's working for whatever reason, anybody can simply just unplug this and plug this directly into the receptacle that we're going to use. Contactors will pull back in, we'll send power to the water heaters. Within a short period of time, we'll have hot water again. Takes no tools, 2 seconds, and anybody can do it should there ever be a problem with any of this stuff. So this is what we're going to go with. Also, you can manually press the button on either side to manually just turn on the water. Both of these work with Google or the other female assistant that helps everybody out. So you can control these any which way you want. Both of these will actually work off of the Smart Life app. So you can find there's hundreds of different brands and styles of all this stuff. You can find anything. We typically use the Smart Life app because we have several dozen light bulbs and outlets and switches and everything to the house. All of it goes through the same app. It just makes it a lot more convenient for us just to keep everything in the same ecosystem with the as far as the app's concerned. So let's start tearing some of this stuff apart, start putting it together, installing things. We'll interrupt and check in once in a while and kind of see where we're at with this. But we got to get this done because it's getting late. We got stuff to do today. Now you could just use a simple water heater mechanical timer. But this is actually only good for one water heater, and you have to have a pretty set schedule. Otherwise, you'll be constantly coming out here and resetting this. If you're running a double water heater setup, you'll need 2 of these. Now you don't have to use the Wi-Fi receptacle. You could use something just as simple as a heavy-duty timer with a ground plug. You could even go with a mechanical one. The only difference again here is you'll have to have a pretty set schedule, because once you set these, you're going to be limited to that time. Alright, let's do a quick checkup and see where we're at here. We've got our contactors are securely mounted inside of our box. One's a little bit crooked, but that's not going to hurt nothing. And then we're going to punch out some knockouts here. We're going to go ahead and tap the box with our cord. At this point, we can actually go ahead and just pre-wire the control circuit and do a real quick test. Just plug the cord in and out of the wall. Just make sure our contactors pull in. Make sure they're not dead out of the box. Let's go ahead and get that done, and we'll check back in. Okay, here's where we're at. We've got our contactors installed. We've pre-wired our control power. This is what we have here. We just ran black and white to each contactor. They're joined together right here. We used one of these Wago lever nuts. It's a 221. Put your wire in, snap down the contact, very secure. I use them all the time. These are about the best things ever made. Tied our wires down with just some anchor points here, a couple of sticky tapes, zip ties to get our control power pushed down and just out of the way of our water heater wiring that we're going to use in just a minute. Alright, let's continue on and let's pre-wire our whips. We can get our whips put in. That will just go off to nowhere for right now. We'll get that stuff taken care of, and then we're going to shut the power off to the water heater and get this thing installed. Here we are now. We've got the wires that are going to go down to the water heater already pre-wired. I went ahead and removed these
connectors that come on the contactors here. These are for auxiliary circuits like lights and fans and other stuff that you might end up using. All you have to do is just loosen that screw right there, reach down inside and just kind of give them a little prime pull, and they just pop right out. But we're not going to be running anything else off of there, so we just get those out of the way just to kind of clean it up in there a little bit. It's already starting to get a little bit crowded with all this wiring. We only actually have just one more set of wiring that come in to connect to this side of the contactor. This will be our power coming from our breaker, and the power will stop here and not be able to continue any further until we have power applied to this plug. Once power is applied to the plug, these contactors will pull in and send power the rest of the way down to the water heaters. And we can accomplish that by either just plugging this directly into an outlet, or in our case, what we're going to do is plug it into this smart switch, smart outlet. Okay, so this is where we left off now. We've got our wiring that comes from the breaker is going up to our box. New wiring that will come down to our water heaters ran down here. Everything's wired up inside here. We can give this a quick test to make sure our contactors, everything's still pulling like they're supposed to. The power is turned off right now to these breakers, so no power on these wires. So whenever we make connection here, contactors pull in, and after everything's finished, we'll be able to send power down to the water heaters using this outlet and the smart plug to be able to turn this dumb water heater setup into a smart water heater setup. So let's get this finished up. It's hot in this garage today, and let's test it out here in just a minute. All right, so now we've got the water heaters wired up. Last thing we can do is plug in our control power, make sure our lights come on. Again, that will just let us know that we actually have power going to the water heaters. Ultimately, the water temperature will be controlled by the thermostats, as it always has been. We're just taking over control of applying power to the water heater. So let's try this out. All right, contactors pulled in. We have power to the water heater. Should we need hot water, the elements will start to heat up. Whenever anybody leaves the house, power will be disconnected and we'll be saving money. All right, I've navigated into the Smart Life app and I've gone to the smart receptacle that's labeled water heater, and I have the plug on switch number 1. We can relabel that later if we need to. But now whenever I turn it on, you'll hear the contactors turn on. And turn back off. We can go in here and set a schedule for switch 1. This would be for setting it up to turn off in the middle of in the night whenever everybody is home, or turn back on in the morning when everybody is home. Otherwise, we'll use animation. I'm not going to go to the home screen because it has my personal information on it, but in the home screen you can go to an animation and you can use that to set up the geofencing, so that whenever all family members leave the house, the water heater will turn off automatically. Whenever anybody comes home, the water heaters will turn back on automatically. All right, well, this is it. Everything's finished. This is our final setup. Power wire coming from the breaker into our control box, down to our water heaters. This is what makes the whole system smart. This should help save us a lot of money on running water heaters whenever we don't need them. Again, I went with a plug setup so that should there ever be a problem with the smart switch, if it was to fail, a Wi-Fi problem, any kind of communication problems, we can simply just come out here, unplug it, plug it back into the wall, and we're back to making hot water again. So I hope this helps everybody. Hope you have fun. Make your own.